You found it. Your home for the best content on your favorite team, the Fighting Tigers of LSU. Do us a favor. Subscribe to the channel. Leave your comments below. Be sure to smash that like button. Brian Kelly was on the SEC Coaches Teleconference on Wednesday and shared some disappointing news. Looks like LSU is going to be down a starting offensive lineman when they head to the Plains against Auburn. Apparently, Garrett Dellinger broke his hand in the game against New Mexico. Here was Brian Kelly giving an update on Wednesday morning.
He had surgery yesterday, and it appears as though it's going to be tight for him to make the game. You know, at first thought we thought we could get him ready, but there was a screw and a plate that needed to go in there. So right now, as we're talking, I would say he's doubtful for Saturday.
So doubtful, kind of incredible that you'd even have an offensive lineman with a broken hand be able to play possibly on such a quick turnaround. But what they would likely do is just, you've seen guys before put the club on their hand and play with that, which is certainly possible if there's a hard cast and it's not comfortable but doable. How effective can you be? Well, one thing's for sure, you're not going to get called for holding. But see if Garrett Dellinger, if he doesn't play this week, if he'd be available for Tennessee. So the question becomes then, how do you replace him? And the answer is pretty obvious, but here was Brian Kelly with the follow-up on Wednesday.
What would y'all be doing at left guard then, you think? Who would be in the mix at that spot?
Yeah, so the natural progression for us would be to move Miles Frazier over to left guard.
So Frazier, remember, started the Florida State game at left guard. So he was a guy that transferred in from FIU, was a freshman All-America tackle at FIU, came into LSU. They played him at left guard in the opener when Dellinger played at center, and then they kind of had the shuffle. They wanted to solidify center, so they put Turner there and moved Dellinger to guard. So Frazier, I don't think there's any question, is a better tackle than he is a guard, but Emory Jones has been better at tackle than has Miles Frazier, which is why Emory Jones is starting there at right tackle instead of Frazier. But you have a veteran guy, an experienced guy, I should say, in Miles Frazier, who has started a game at left guard, and so you slide him back in there, and that makes the most sense. Offensive line is it is the most oft-injured unit on any football team. Just the physicality, you're playing in a phone booth, guys get rolled on, it's just a physical position. You lose linemen. And so you have to have depth. It almost goes without saying, but we'll say it for the benefit of this segment. You have to have depth. The problem LSU has right now is, and we talked about this all throughout fall camp, because they were rotating so many guys as they were trying to solidify a rotation. And you have a lot of guys that have played, if you remember, went through this. They had 10 guys in this offensive line group, 10 guys coming into the season who had started a game at the college level. But you still had so much uncertainty about who was going to win jobs where, because even though guys had started, they hadn't played particularly well. That's before Will Campbell and Emory Jones got their first starts this year. So actually that number's higher now. If you want a positive of the Dellinger injury, I've got two for you. And one of them may sound cynical, but I don't intend it to be. And it's that LSU's offensive line isn't really that great to begin with. I think we could all agree on that. That is a weakness on this team. So I think it would be more difficult if you were losing a key player at a position of strength. For example, losing Mason Smith. We looked at LSU's defensive line as maybe the best unit on the team, certainly the best unit on the defense. You lose Mason Smith, who is your best player on the best unit. That hurts. Now, Mekhi Wingo has played exceptionally well. He's answered that call, which has been a godsend for this defense, especially on the interior. If you have a really good quarterback, obviously, and he is injured and you have to replace him, that is a step back. That is not a good thing. This is a unit that was already struggling to find itself a little bit, so you know, if you're already kind of a weak point, are we really going to have a noticeable difference? Will we see a noticeable difference with Dellinger to Frazier at left guard? Probably not, quite honestly. The other thing is LSU does have depth at guard. They've struggled at tackle. That's why you're playing two freshmen there. But Tremont Shorts has been a guard. Miles Frazier has started the first game at left guard for you. You've got Xavier Hill back now. You got bodies at guard that can play. The real negative of this is not necessarily your first five, but it's what do you do at center if something happens to Charles Turner? Y'all, when you get on bended knee tonight, pray for world peace. Pray for all the people in the state of Florida who are taking on the brunt of Hurricane Ian right now, which is so sad to see. Pray for health and happiness and all that good stuff. And pray for Charles Turner. Pray for him to stay healthy this week. Because after Charles Turner, I literally today don't even know who they would put in at center if something happened to Charles Turner. I have no idea. Remember back in the spring when Brian Kelly told us Brad Davis was cross-training 5 different players at center because they didn't feel like they were solidified there. You had Turner, and they were working a lot of other guys there. Ultimately, Dellinger started the first game there. Fitzgerald West, you recruited as a defensive lineman to play center. He played defensive line in high school, but you recruited him as a center. But that's a true freshman who's never played the position. So what do you do? I mean, seriously, I literally don't even know what they would do if Dellinger's not available. If something happened to Turner, what would you do at center? So that's a gigantic question. So they've got to keep Charles Turner healthy this week. Specifically for Saturday, though, LSU's offensive line, like we've talked about, has been a weak point on this team. They're not. It's not a great unit. We understand that. Every team has strengths and weaknesses. LSU's defense has been really good. The defensive line, LSU's receivers are really good. The offensive line is not a position of strength. I think it will be in time. I think when you have, Garrett Dellinger and Will Campbell and Emory Jones all as upperclassmen, now I think you're cooking. You got something going there. And maybe later in the season, those 2 young tackles will come into their own and become better and better and better as the season goes along. But right now, that's not a strong point. But Auburn's defensive front isn't either. This isn't that great Auburn defensive line a couple of years ago in 2019 when you had Derek Brown and Big Cat Bryant and all those guys. Like, this ain't that unit, man. Derek Hall won the SEC Defensive Player of the Year award. He's a really good rush end, and that's someone you're going to have to count for, obviously. But man, they allowed 74 rush yards to Mercer, 54 to San Jose State. So looked really good. But then they went up against Penn State and allowed 245 rush yards, 6.3 yards per carry. Penn State had their way at the line of scrimmage. And last week, Missouri ran for 133. I know LSU's run game, and look, no Dellinger. We haven't gotten an update on Armani Goodwin, if he's going to be available. And it certainly didn't look good on Saturday with the injury against New Mexico. But if you're down a starting offensive lineman and your number one running back so far, that certainly doesn't help. But I've told you this already when they played Florida State, when they played Mississippi State. I'm going to say it again. Jaden Daniels is going to be your leading rusher again. How much ground is there to gain running the football for this LSU team? That's going to be really one of the stories within this game to watch as it unfolds, to see if LSU is able to gain some traction running the football. But, it stinks not to have Garrett Dellinger. It stinks to be down a player on the offensive line. We're already not great there. But I don't know how good they were going to be there anyway. The key to this game is going to be LSU's defense putting Auburn in a 3-hour chokehold and limiting their scoring opportunities, and the offense protecting the football. Don't make that Auburn offense drive the length of the field, because I don't know that they can consistently. So protect the football, go in there, play good defense. You should be able to get out with a win, even without Garrett Dellinger. And we'll get an update on his status when they play Tennessee. Hey, thanks so much for watching. Please leave your comments. I love to interact, and be sure to hit the red subscribe button below.